we will wrap up our look at population geography with two more outlier examples. The first is the country of Botswana, and Botswana has somewhat of a pyramid shape to its population. What makes Botswana unique is that its population is cut off, and you can see right around the 40 to 44-year-old cohort, and above that is very low. Botswana experienced the devastation of the AIDS epidemic in the late 20th century, which cut out much of its middle-aged population, much of its working-age population. So as a result, Botswana experienced a very low life expectancy. And you can see that the pyramid is relatively wide through the 30s. And with AIDS, many people contract AIDS during their healthiest years, during the years when they are going to grow a family, during the years where they're going to contribute to the economy. So Botswana faced a population and economic crisis as the AIDS epidemic spread through the country. You can see on the chart on the left, Botswana in red saw a major impact in its life expectancy in the 21st century as the result of the diffusion of AIDS. So Botswana is recovering today from this AIDS crisis. And you can see again that the devastation this took on individuals that were born in the second half of the 20th century. As these individuals reached adulthood, a disproportionate percentage of those adults were contracting AIDS. Botswana has taken significant measures to increase education, to reduce stereotypes and taboos associated with safe-sex practices, and also provide neonatal and postnatal care for babies born to HIV-positive mothers. So public health awareness education, changing certain practices has allowed Botswana to slowly recover. So as Botswana ages, moves through the 21st century, we're going to anticipate that this shape becomes a little bit more of a pyramid, a little bit more of what we'd find in our stage 3, and not so misshapen as a result of the AIDS crisis. In our final example is Qatar, and you can see here a significant gender imbalance between males and females. And this is because Qatar, beginning in the late 20th century, undertook a massive natural resource extraction economy. And the local population, the native population, wasn't large enough to support this growing industry. So Qatar attracted immigrants from South Asia and the Middle East to work here. And what we're finding in Qatar is, unlike the immigration scenario in the US, where we have a lot of individuals, but we also have families arriving, we found mostly young men, single young men arriving in Qatar to make money. Many of these young men would leave after establishing themselves and making money and return to their homeland. They weren't here for the duration of their lives. They weren't going to grow a family, establish generations of families in Qatar. So this population pyramid is among the most bizarre, among the most outlandish that we find across the world. Now, when we think about demographic dividends, consider how much revenue this state is making, as the majority of its population is simply there to work. So Qatar has a large revenue stream to support dependents. There are very few dependents in the elderly cohorts, and there are few dependents in the young cohorts. So a nation like Qatar certainly is unusual when we examine population pyramids, and the reason for that is not due to any type of natural increase or even government planning policy like we saw in China, but rather the economic need for labor is there, in that pull factor, that pull force is bringing young men from throughout South Asia and the Middle East to work in Qatar.